Taking forever. What's up, SEO pros? We're here with Pat Ahern with Junto, which is a internet marketing agency. Today, what we're going to be discussing is content marketing, social signals, traffic generation, and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let me just introduce you to Pat. Welcome, Pat.
Thanks, Chase. It's awesome to be here.
Totally. So so let's kind of dive into what's going on right now in 2017. What are some of the big things you're seeing around internet marketing, SEO, and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest thing that I've really started to see, I would say probably over the past like 3 years, has been this really quantum shift from the importance of quantity of content to more of quality of content. One of the biggest things when I first got into SEO, it was extremely common to put out these 500-word blog posts, see them hit the first page of Google, and get a crazy amount of traffic from them. From a few different agencies, I've taken that approach, and over time have started to see that those 500-word articles are just seeing less and less return on your investment. The trick in SEO now is to create incredibly informative, extensive content. Usually I like to say 1,500 to 2,000 words, promoting the hell out of it. Second trend to that point is that I think content marketing and just content promotion as a whole in the room that no one really wants to admit exists. I would argue in many cases the promotional side is just as important as the actual creation side. Really the two biggest things that I'm seeing, keeping it like very vague here. But Chase, I'd love to hear your take. What are some of the other big trends you're seeing?
Yeah, so I mean, what I kind of started thinking of was, like, for me, I personally push content like crazy, as you can see with the videos I do, and but I also push content in terms of telling people it's really important to do content marketing, mainly because your brand isn't just landing pages. It's more of a a company, hopefully some sort of company that provides knowledge or information or help, because you're really knowledgeable about what you do. So why not provide the information, right? It just makes sense. People are coming to you as as buyers, thinking, okay, if this company knows a lot about their stuff, then I'm going to buy from them. It builds trust. There's so many things that go with it. So what do you tell the people, Pat, that say, oh, well, I don't have a very a flashy niche where people are interested in the stuff that I'm going to write about, so I shouldn't have to blog or do content marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say in that scenario, those people, there's almost more of a need for them to blog. If you take a really, assuming a big assumption that I'm putting in there, I'm a firm believer that content marketing is going to drive the most value if you're in a space that by educational material, or let's say lack of educational material. If you're operating, if you're the head of Juicy Fruit, content marketing. With Juicy Fruit, they probably don't need my help in any way. But on the other hand, let's say you're working in a much larger space. If you're working, let's say you're working for or you are an attorney, maybe you're a car dealership, something like that. The types of fields that dealership, because if we're talking about some really nice cars, that could be really fun to blog about. But dealership, a lawyer, anything like that, so much education that goes into any sort of purchase revolved around these general industries. And at the end of the day, there are always going to be people, as long as the internet is still a thing, there are always going to be people who are searching online for that information. A non-glamorous industry, in most cases, you are far less likely to actually find any sort of content about that. Lawyers in the past, ranking for SEO for lawyers is one of the easiest things I've ever done, because no one wants to sit down and write 500 words about what jury consulting is. So as a result, one extensive piece of content, your piece of content might be the only other thing out there.
And that's the other thing I kind of want to add too, is it's so awesome that you bring that up, because most people think, well, you know, nobody in my industry is talking about this stuff. And it's like, well, then that means you should start talking about it, because that's going to give you the competitive edge that nobody else is doing. And I even see this in, like, I remember this one client I had about a year ago. They were a local vending machine company. And I was like, hey, you have to do content marketing. And like, okay, that's the one niche where it's like, if you're a local vending machine company, why would you be doing blogging? I'm not kidding you. About 3 months after he started doing blogging, like one post a week, he like hit literally #1 locally and then #1 organically within the next like couple months. And I guarantee you it was because we put all this right stuff in place. He had all the citations built out. He had started having reviews, but it wasn't until he started pushing all that content and building authority to his site that's when he started ranking. So my question is, so in terms of promotion, what do you spend a lot of time doing? Is it mainly Facebook targeting? Do you spend a lot of time doing like Pinterest? I know there's all these types of different channels you can work on right now that some are more successful than others.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will say Pinterest is a community that I know almost nothing about, and I really regret that. It's something I want to invest more time into learning about it as the year goes on, because I know so many business owners that have seen such a huge return for it. But if I were to describe some of my biggest efforts, I will say Twitter, I think, is the tool that I've figured out the best.
You don't hear that.
Twitter I find is a really good catalyst for starting out all of your content promotion efforts.
Really?
So a little shameless self-promotion here. Myself and the team at Junto built out this, what I call the Twitter leapfrog method, really just over the past year. To, let's say you publish an article about vending machines. Twitter leapfrog method is really just all about finding all that other really popular content about vending machines out there, all 2 articles throughout the entire internet out there. The advocates for that content that is so similar to what you're publishing, and then just reaching out to those advocates via Twitter as these individualized tweets to share your newly published content with them.
Interesting. So do you do that like just looking for keywords based off like advanced search, or is there a different method you use?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's a pretty simple method. What I do is identify what are 2 to 4 different target keywords for this one article that I'm going to be writing. I'll just hop onto Google, see what results pop up on the first page of the SERPs for each of these keywords, open up these articles, plug them into a tool I like to use called BuzzSumo.
Nice.
On Ahrefs, I know they're just starting to experiment with it now. Find a list of all these people that have shared this content in the past. In other words, the people who have said, wow, this content is so helpful that I'm going to go out of my way to share it with my readers. And then what I basically did is built out a systematic process. Basically, if you just Google Twitter leapfrog method, you can find this entire process outlined. For anyone watching this, guys, like, use the technique. I use it for every article I publish. I use it for all my clients. But ultimately, the entire process is outlined there, not only just in terms of how to find these opportunities, but basically how to do mass outreach to these people in the smallest amount of time possible.
Okay. And I'll put the link in the description too, so they can get it. So, I mean, like, what do you see though, like in terms of, you know, long-term traffic? Is that something that will lead to maybe like getting a bunch of people signed up for a newsletter? Like, there has to be probably a second step to this, right? Other than just generating the traffic, or do you just continually do this every single post?
Absolutely, great question. So yeah, I would say like the Twitter leapfrog method is really just the catalyst for starting to get people to talk about my article. At a really high level that I've put out with that Twitter leapfrog method, really just trying to get some initial eyeballs, get some initial social. From there, what I try to do is with each client, find a handful of different social communities where their readers are going to be extremely active. Hosts, you know, Chase, I try to stay active in your Facebook group, which, guys, if you aren't watching this, join Chase's group. It's awesome. There's a group called White Hat SEO by a friend of ours, Nikolai Stroyanov. He butchered his last name, and I'm sure I'll hear it from him later. But anyways, so, you know, White Hat SEO, another awesome group that people should check out. Inbound.org for marketers and startup people as a whole is another really incredible community. And I think my all-time favorite has to be Quora. Quora or Q? I think it's Quora.
Quora, I think.
I always get that wrong. You'd think I'd have it down by now, but
you know what's interesting is I've been hearing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you know what's interesting is I've been hearing a lot of people talking about like spending a lot of time in Quora lately. What do you think about that?
You know, so Chase, I got started with Quora like right back at the very beginning of my marketing career when it was like really just starting out. Quora I've found better than any other social community out there drives long-term users to your most popular content and back to your website. Haven't heard of it before. Quora is basically a social community revolved around questions and answers. So there's all sorts of different niches that you can talk about or get more information on. And within each of these individual categories, all sorts of questions across the board. And the founders of Quora have done an incredible job really building up this community that A, brings in some incredible experts from around the world, but B, it's a community where people are very intimate and very honest about their experiences. If you delve through there, you can find some really powerful stories in there, and you can find some really incredible successes and failures that other people have experienced. Especially coming in with whatever your industry expertise may be, you know, look for questions that relate to your industry and share your honest feedback about it. Take time to write out a really thoughtful response. Take time to actually write out, you know, are going to get several hundred, several thousand views even. If you can promote an article or promote your website in a natural way in these responses, it's just an incredible way to drive long-term traffic back to your site.
Yeah, what I was actually doing at one point, Pat, is I was looking for, so I do like site colon in Google search, site colon Quora.com, and then in quotations SEO, and then I would filter by the last 24 hours. I'd go through the different questions with SEO in them, and I would answer them live on YouTube, create a little response, and then post that with the response and the video response on Quora. And then I'd get people to my YouTube channel and get subscribers through that. And I was doing that back when I didn't really have that many subscribers, and I actually was able to, you know, get a good amount of views from that.
Wow, Chase, that's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Gonna say one thing that I've done in the past and I've seen work really well. Find these people on Quora who are asking these questions. You know, take Chase's approach. It's a brilliant idea. Whether it be publishing a video on YouTube or even typing up a short blog article on your website, and then linking back to your article and saying, hey, so-and-so, just saw your question. I actually just typed up a full response to you right here on my site. You can find it here.
Yeah.
And not only is the response always there on Quora, but it's always there on your site. It can become a resource to show to future readers. Chase, I love that idea. That's awesome.
So in terms of off-page SEO, what do you spend a lot of time doing? Broken link building, just going on like BuzzSumo and looking for other people who are like linking to those articles? Like, because I know you can do that as well. Or do you like filter by domain? There's so many different ways people do link building right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say broken link building is my all-time favorite tactic. The way to scale that effort. Broken link building has gotten me some of my best links. Helped me to get one client featured in Inc. magazine a while back, and extremely psyched about that one. But broken link building as a whole, just at a really high level, in case anyone doesn't know, basically you find an article on the internet that has a lot of websites linking back to it that is no longer existent. So the type of page that you get to and it shows a 404 error, or it shows, you know, this page cannot be found, anything like that. There's a couple different ways you can approach it. Called the Wayback Machine. Just hop on Google. I think it's archive.org is the exact URL. But identify what did this content used to look like. You can actually publish a very similar article to that one, and then you can actually reach out to all of the people who are linking to this article originally. You just publish this new piece of content that is very similar to what they used to be linking to, and ask that they just change out their broken link for your new one. Slight ways that you can alter that. If you write a really powerful article about a general theme, you find some people who are linking to a broken resource. You can also just suggest that they link to your new theme, which may be a couple degrees removed from that original broken link. Either way, broken link building has been huge. I think, again, going back to the idea of scalability, broken link building is incredible for anyone who's doing SEO in-house, I would say. Because as you come across those opportunities, it's really just an incredible opportunity to leverage. If you are doing SEO as more of like a product type offering or a service type offering, broken link building can be like a rare gold coin that you'll like sort of client the industry in one extensive guide to that specific problem that people are dealing with, and then identify who are all the people that are linking to the most high performing content that is even remotely similar to this. So, one example, like with the Twitter leapfrog method, we did quite a bit of link building around that as well. As I found, okay, what are the top performing articles on the internet that revolve around the idea of content promotion or revolve around the idea of social media promotion of any sort. And then what I do is I use a tool called Ahrefs, pull out all the different websites that are linking to each of these top performing articles. Usually when I'm filtering through it, I have a minimum domain rating or like kind of website authority of 30, just to ensure that you're getting high quality, relevant results in there. It's in a foreign language. And then I'll just reach out to those websites individually, encouraging them, basically starting a relationship with them, trying to start up a conversation with them. And over time, getting a handful of them to hopefully link back to the content.
Right on. Yeah, I definitely.
But Chase, what about your? Oh.
No, yeah, I was about to say, I definitely see like broken link building as something that it's not just asking for a link, but you're actually providing value other than just your post. So even the people who have really bad posts and maybe they're not very valuable, they're still providing value because at least they're going and saying, hey, at least this page isn't broken, But yeah, I was actually experimenting with broken link building once I saw like some stuff on Scrapebox. I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah, so it's, for those of you who don't know, it's like this tool that you can go out and crawl a bunch of URLs, and they have this checker where you can actually just export only broken links, and then you can take all those broken links and you can upload them to like a application like something called Pitchbox, which will go and it'll grab all of the URLs, it'll find all of the emails and the social media profiles associated with those, and it'll dynamically replace any sort of JavaScript you put in these emails with their names that it pulls, with their blogs that it pulls, and then you can just like email these people en masse. I started working on that stuff, but honestly, Pat, like I've been spending so much time doing other stuff that I haven't really like done these experiments that I'd like to do. But yeah, there's some crazy stuff you can do.
Wow, that's incredible.
Personally, for me, I try not to spend too much time link building because the thing is for me is like I just keep seeing Google hitting this stuff over and over and over. And I've been in so many debates with SEOs lately, like in the last year, and it's crazy. Like I get freaking hammered on where people are like, dude, Chase, like you're so wrong about these links. And it's like, dude, I don't care. Like I love debating with these people, but I just keep seeing Google like, okay, we're going to devalue them a little bit more. Okay, we're going to devalue them a little bit more. It's like, and if you think about it, when people are going to a website, do you think that they're thinking, okay, I'm going to buy from these people because of the amount of links they have, or I'm going to read this post because the amount of links they have? They don't do that. That's not, when Google's trying to go more to, so I could go into this whole rant, but either way, broken link, backlink building in my opinion, is one of the few things that I actually agree with, but I think there's an art to it. So is there anything you specifically say? Because it sounds like you're good at outreaching to these people. What are some ways that you actually talk to these people online to perhaps like entice them more than just saying, hey, there's a 404, can you replace it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the really simple things I do, and I think I got this technique from Brian Dean, sort of link building. I do this a lot with broken link building in particular, to get to your question, is I'll actually start out by starting a conversation with them, saying, in many cases, hey, so-and-so just came across your article about this general theme, really awesome piece, include like one relevant sentence about that article that stuck out to me, especially dealing with, larger scale influencers who I'm sure are getting bombarded with these emails like 100 times a day. Personalize it at least to a small degree. And then what I do is, I'll say, hey, I actually wrote something pretty similar to this. Would it be okay if I sent it over to you? Bombarding them with more links. You're kind of starting out with just a smaller ask and saying, content I think you might like, first of all, is it okay if I send it over to you? Then you can send it over to them if they say yes. If then, you reach out to them after you've sent over the link and say, hey, what did you think about it? Like, I'd love to hear your feedback. Any changes you'd like to see in it? People who say, wow, this was an awesome article. In some scenarios, you'll get lucky and they'll say, I actually just linked to it in this recent article that I just published. You can say, hey, if you think your readers would find it helpful, link to it in one of these other articles so that they can look at this as a source of additional information. At the end of the day, link building is basically like doing cold calling, just at scale. Thing that goes on if you reach out to enough people and can provide value to them in some way and give them a reason to link back to your resource. A small percent will say yes, but assuming you can scale these processes, that small percent makes it totally worth it. I aim for, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've actually seen articles of people who say that they do cold call for links.
Really?
So they'll actually call agencies or companies with similar articles instead of emailing them, because you get such a lower response rate, and they'll call them up and they'll pitch them their idea for the link. So I think that's a good idea. I mean, honestly, I don't have time to respond to all the emails I get. So if somebody were to call me and be like, hey, Chase, there's a broken link on your site. Here's the page, here's the link, and if you just want to replace it, I would be like, okay, cool, dude, and I would hang up.
To be honest, if any, just a side note, for anyone watching this, if you ever call me on the phone and tell me like, hey, Pat, you wrote an awesome article right here, this resource that I just wrote, you can find it here, like, that's innovative. I'm probably going to link to you.
So I think the idea now, Pat, is we have to create an agency where all we do is cold call for links.
It's brilliant. We'll just get a bunch of interns in high school and we'll get all day for
and then we'll just start selling it for like, well, we'll talk about it later. So let's talk about conversions. So what do you spend a lot of time doing in terms of like, okay, so Twitter is great for promoting content, but maybe that's not the channel you use to generate conversions. Personally, I spend a lot of time on YouTube because I know people are going to convert from there because my audience is more visual based. So in terms of you or maybe your clients, what do you focus on, or what do you, some people just only focus on Facebook ads. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I would say my entire process when it relates to conversions is to start by identifying what are the keywords that customers are currently searching for. Let's say going back to the vending machine example, just so we have something tangible. If people are searching for vending machine distributors, most of my efforts are going to be revolved around getting this business to show up for that keyword, or maybe another relevant keyword that might just be a little bit more realistic for them to rank for. My goal is to really just structure their site, assuming we're going in and making some website changes, to structure their site so that it is just more conducive to bringing in conversions. So a couple things that I love to do, if they don't at least have a contact us page, one of the first things I want to do is just set up a contact us page for them. That's certainly going to see a very low conversion rate, but at least it gives some means that people can reach out to them, request more information. Do is to set up an email newsletter for them, or set up some sort of free consultation offer for them. Really awesome tool that I love to use for that is a tool called SumoMe, or I think they just rebranded to just Sumo at this point. A lead generation tool to set up that allows people to very easily sign up for your email list, to book a consultation with you, download a guide, anything like that. caveat I will say about that, and I think this is going a bit down a rabbit hole that we may not want to go down, but Google, I think it was back in like September or October maybe, like really broad announcement saying basically like, hey, yeah, by the way, we're going to start penalizing websites that use pop-ups.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember like seeing all these things pop up, but you know, Noah Kagan from Sumo Me, and I think Neil Patel from, I think he did Crazy Egg, you know, all these brands started freaking out because, you know, these are some really reputable companies that do a lot of pop-ups, and Google hasn't really released what,
more specifically, the mobile pop-ups that show up on the entrance that people go off of Google Organic. Anytime else, though, I think for the most part, unless, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that mostly it's the mobile pop-ups.
Was it? Okay. Oh, that's great to know.
I do know, though, that the Fred update, which is recent, and the reason why it's called Fred, for those of you guys who don't know, is because Google doesn't want to release any more information on new updates because they're tired of people asking. So from now on, they're only calling updates Fred, which is really annoying because nobody wants to call every update Fred, but it's really funny. So, Fred specifically, they didn't actually say anything about, which is even more annoying because they usually at least say something. But people are thinking a lot of it has to do with like ads, and you know, some of those might have to do with pop-ups, but also they're saying with links, and then they're also saying with content. So it's just kind of all over the place. Basically, just don't be doing black hat, and you're going to be okay in the long run. If you're doing black hat, be really good at it. Be like one of the top 1% of black hats out there who really know what they're doing. And then you'll be fine in that regard too. I don't even know why we're talking about this though. Oh yeah, the what you were talking about.
With like conversion rates as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, I guess even kind of using that as a segue, you know, one point I did want to jump back on, which, you know, I think would just be interesting because I think you and I probably have slightly different perspectives on this. But I know you mentioned the idea of not really focusing on link building, which I understand that in some regards. You know, don't fully agree with you there, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your take on link building because it sounds like that's definitely not a big focus for you.
Yeah. So I mean, I welcome anytime somebody tells me, like, you know, like I told you before this, you know, I want you to disagree with me because I think it makes things more interesting. So in terms of link building, I mean, I just look at it from more of like a long-term strategy. And I think that, you know, links are really important at this moment. But in terms of like what these links are going to be providing you a couple years from now, from how Google sees it, in my opinion, which I don't even really care how Google sees it. If you spend, I don't know, maybe 100 hours building links and you get a bunch of good links and, you know, your content's ranking, but you spend 100 hours instead working on creating like a skyscraper post that's like the most amazing content anybody's ever going to see for that specific, you know, niche. In my opinion, even if you get the 100 links, the content is so much more helpful to people, and it's so much more like of an accomplishment. And just if you look at it from more of just like a natural standpoint of all of this work that you put in there to provide value to people, and that you're going to have this for the next, I don't know, however long you have your website, to me, that's way more important than links. And I know the rankings are the most important thing, and that's what people are looking for, and that's where all the money is and all that stuff. But I can't really, it's more of like a principle for me. It's like, I can't really justify going out and asking people for links, because to me, it just doesn't really feel like, it's not like it's just like, oh, well, Google says against it. It's like, for me, it just feels like this isn't really like, I mean, unless you're really, really good at off-page SEO, you're really good at interacting with people, you actually do call people or whatever it is, you have like some competitive edges where you can go on Scrapebox and you can generate, like if you're an expert in it, then dude, yeah, go ahead. But if you're just like everybody else and you could be spending your time learning how to build like, you know, phenomenal content that converts or whatever it is, I mean, it's really to each their own. I mean, if you're really good at anything, then it's hard to say, but I usually speak on the general like aspect of things, because you kind of have to generalize everything in SEO, because otherwise, if you don't, things get way out of hand and you end up talking about Fred for the next 5 hours, and you don't want to do that. So, so
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
but I was gonna say something in regards to conversions, and I don't remember what it was.
Well, and I was
Uh,
gonna say, Chase, can I just jump in with like a little response to link building there?
of course.
Because I can from there. I know, like in my experience, one of the big things that I've seen, because I fully agree with you, I think that as important as links are, Google, where things stand right now, always saying that the two biggest ranking, or I guess three biggest ranking factors are going to be your website to whatever someone is searching for. How good is that content? And ultimately, yeah, well, let's call it those two things. How good is that content and how relevant is it to what people are searching for? Currently stand. I think Chase and I can both agree that, like, regardless of where SEO is going to be in 10 years, and count the biggest ranking factors that they do look at when determining how good is that content. Agree with you that the worst SEO strategy you could take on would be to write like 500-word blog posts or even less than that and try and get like a bunch of links for it. At that point, the content quality in most cases is probably going to be so low, or of just spamming people. When I do any sort of link building effort, I tend to meet. I say is instead of creating low quality content, spending all your time doing link building, say create really powerful content, much time to creating this powerful content as you would to basically going out and getting links to this content. You could choose, simple way to think of it, maybe you have a couple different options. You could either blog articles that are 500 words and go and try and get a bunch of links for it, or you could publish two 2,000-word articles that are extremely informative. There, go for that one article out instead of two, maybe that's 2,000 words, and then spend a bunch of time promoting that content to the right people. I would say if you're creating valuable content, if you're reaching out to the right targeted people, be seen by some people as like spammy and kind of just an obnoxious email to receive. Like I've certainly seen a lot of people who have responded to these emails and said, wow, thank you so much for sending this to me. This is an incredible resource. Share this with my readers. If I were to sum it up, I would say if done in kind of like in a joint effort with valuable content can actually be a really valuable practice to get your article seen by the right people.
Right. And I'm not saying, like I said before, with a lot of this stuff I have to generalize because it's hard to be specific about everything. Because in some cases, it is good to go out and check what the competitors' links are locally, so you can go and find hyper local, links that are going to help boost your authority. But what I'm saying is, in general, look, if you're Brad Pitt and you go out to a bar, you're not going to have a problem getting women because he's Brad Pitt, right? So how that compares is that, if your content's so awesome and you spend all of your time being Brad Pitt in the terms of like whatever your niche is, people are going to like your stuff no matter what. And you're going to naturally start picking stuff up on the way because of the fact that you spend so much time creating yourself or creating your own business. So that means, doing all the things that you should be doing, like creating really high quality content, being an authority in your niche, sharing with other people who are authorities in your niche, like whether it be through Facebook groups or, social media or whatever it is. In my opinion, building up all of those assets as like an empire versus getting a blog post and building 100 links to it from random places where you may never talk to these people again, in general, doesn't seem as
Absolutely.
profitable to me. And I feel like a lot of people look at all like off-page SEO as a long-term strategy when I don't see it that way. I see it as something that's going to be important for maybe the next couple years, if not sooner, and slowly start to fade into the background as Google becomes smarter. They're saying that Google right now has the average intelligence of like a 14-year-old, but they expect it in the near future to have like the average intelligence of like an adult and even higher afterwards. So You know, if they do get to that point, it's going to be pretty much all user experience, in my opinion, all user experience and all user intent. So what are people looking for, and what is the experience on that website? Nothing to do with links. And then probably also a lot of social signals. I think social signals, like we were talking about before, probably going to be the new backlink.
Yeah, and Chase, I will say, I definitely, to some degree, I really agree with you with the social signals element. So I used to be a really firm believer in the same idea. I do, fully agree with you. I do think the value of backlinks is declining as time goes on. I still think it's going to be extremely valuable as long as you're continuing to push out great content. But as well, that as time goes on, social signals are going to be more important to the actual ranking elements. One thing I'd really love to hear your take on, though, Chase, because I know, when I talk to people about social signals, things I always say to them is I've had a lot of articles that I've written over the years rank extremely well for target keywords above, Forbes, Entrepreneur, and other sites like that, links at all, but simply instead had great user interaction on the articles themselves and had a great social share count, whether it be on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or any of the kind of like secondary communities. But interesting questions that I always get in response to that, a site like, let's say BuzzFeed or Huffington Post, obviously they're creating a lot of content, or Mashable, let's say, creating a lot of content, the type of content that's going to go viral, it's going to get a crazy number of social shares. And I don't really know how to respond to this one yet, but questions that people will always ask is, taking social signals more into account, would BuzzFeed and Mashable just take over the internet completely? Great world to think about.
That's a good question. I mean, I feel like it's sort of similar to, kind of how Google treats links, as, these sites also have a very high amount of links, not just social shares, to the posts that they make. So how are you outranking those as well if they, have a bunch of links and not just social shares? Because of course we're talking about links being very important. And I think the answer is Google's, as they turn up the volume on, like, you could have 1 million social shares and just rank with that, perhaps. But you have to look at it from, there's all these different ranking factors, and there's all these different types of intents, user intent, and user signals and user experience that Google weighs into each different search result. So in some cases, the social signals are going to be really important. Like, for instance, people who are looking up the word panda are actually looking up for a YouTube video by a rapper. And the reason for that is because Google is able to figure out the intent behind that. And maybe if one of the videos had more shares than the other, maybe that video is going to rank higher, even though it's the same song. So there's all these things that get, like, kind of wrapped up in the mix of things. There was something I was going to say on the part of content. My mind, like, kind of tries to look at everything at once.
I hear you. I tend to jump from one subject to the next, and it's a terrible, terrible habit. Yeah. What about this? One other thing I'd love to hear your take on, because, for me, like, I love to nerd out about what the future of SEO is going to look like. And I'm sorry for all the watchers if we go on these total tangents for another couple minutes, but hear your take on, Chase. When it comes, because I do agree with you, as time goes on, like, experience and user intent is going to become increasingly valuable, especially as RankBrain gets even more advanced. Well, one thing I'd love to hear about, where things currently stand, a crazy amount of information about your experience once you leave the SERP and get onto a page. What's the term for it? Is it dwell time? I always screw this one up. I think it's dwell time, when it's
bounce rates or average time spent on page or whatever it is.
The only thing now, I know a lot of people have theorized that Google doesn't really have the ability to see, like, average time on site, pages per session, because while many people are on Google Analytics and have their data traced through that, and other tools like Kissmetrics or Heatmap or anything like that, Google didn't have the data to all those sites. It would just so heavily favor site that was using Google Analytics, which actually that could be a brilliant long-term strategy for them to wake up one day and say, hey, by the way, analytics, we can see how long people stay on your site, which means that you're probably going to severely outrank anyone else. And just like that, KISS metrics would probably disappear overnight. But here's one thing, sorry, total tangent, but one thing I'd love to hear your thoughts on. As time goes on,
definitely.
Super general question, but
oh, it's
what
good.
do you think, how do you think Google's going to evolve user intent and evolve their ability to understand that over time?
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually asked this to like everybody who comes on, and there's so many things you could talk about. There's like the fact that, Google's constantly changing their algorithms, so we could guess on that. Google's, implementing AI, so we could guess on that. But really what it is, dude, honestly, like I spend so much time doing SEO, and I spend, I don't know, for the last couple of years, I've probably spent, thousands and thousands of hours reading and researching and all this stuff. And what starts to happen is you start to see this reoccurring theme. And what I believe it to be is a lot of mumbo jumbo of people kind of just, making up these claims, and Google doesn't really tell you anything. So you kind of have to position yourself as somebody who knows a lot of stuff, so you can kind of, get people to buy from you, and then you learn along the way. So there's a lot that goes on that it's like, it's just based off of what people think works because they experience it, which is how people work. So what I'm trying to get at right now is that what I see working is usually the things that are the most ethically correct. And I'm not saying that because I'm like this kind of guy who's like saying, hey, look, you should do this because it's morally right, or you should do this because Google's going to reward you. Because that also to me sounds like mumbo jumbo. What I'm trying to say is that if you spend the time looking at what actually works in terms of the psychology behind people, what they're looking for, what they're going to a website for to get, and what you have to do to put yourself in front of these people and position yourself as an authority in that niche, things are going to start working, and you're going to be getting data along the way that you're going to be able to use. It's all about just moving the car forward. And if you don't move the car forward in the right direction, and you're moving it backwards, and you're doing all this shady stuff like spinning content, building out 10 tiers of Web 2.0s, and you're doing all this crazy stuff that you in your heart know that like this isn't something I should be spending my time on, then you're not actually learning something of long-term value. You're just helping people for as long as you can because you know it works and you've experienced it working. But theoretically, this stuff could change at any moment. And one of the things that always stays the same is the fact that if you create really high quality stuff that people like, you're going to get long-term value out of it. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in between that, but that's kind of how I see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're spot on. I always have this little like gut check that I do whenever I'm trying to do any sort of optimizations, where if I get like a bad feeling in the center of my stomach that says like, I don't know if I really want to do this, like this is a little risky. Like,
so what do you see, man? Oh shoot, I think
as far as
it just cut out. Sorry.
Oh no. I was just rambling. But no, I was just saying like if I'm, let's say I'm trying to help a website to rank higher in Google for something or another, if I have a certain idea that I want to pursue and I get this like little feeling in the bottom of my stomach just saying like, this is probably a bad idea, like do that. That's probably not the best call. I always like to say that like when it comes to Google at a really high level, like think about where Google is going to be in 10 years. Like there are always going to be little ways to cheat the system, but and cheat the system, Google is going to catch on to what you're doing as time goes on. It's like if you were to do a cross-country road trip. You're driving along the highway, yeah, it's going to be really appealing to drive 80 or 90 at certain sections when the speed limit says 60. You can do that for a while. You're going to get ahead of everyone else if, let's assume this is some sort of race or something. But eventually, there's a speed trap. There's going to be a state trooper that's going to pull you over and hit you with a really massive fine. Except in the case of Google, if you get hit with that massive fine, it's 50% of their traffic coming from search engines. And just like that, away. Granted, you can get it back, but that's going to be a long-term process in order to recover that.
All right, Pat. So we got about 5 minutes left. Can you sum up what your opinion is of SEO in the future, or internet marketing, or social media, or whatever you want to, put your eggs, whatever basket you want to put your eggs in?
Wow, you're not leaving me with an easy question, Chase.
It can take a little bit more than 5 minutes if you need it.
All right, so let me see if I can muster up a response in my ramblings. Summarize internet marketing. Try and ramble and try and bring us all together to one cohesive thought. I think the direction of SEO is going from being a standalone role at every single company to more of an advocate role that needs to be present in every single business. As time goes on, SEO is moving away from stuffing keywords and getting spammy backlinks to having a significant overlap with every other element of a company's brand. Seeing how many brand mentions there are across the internet, seeing social signals. Whether some people will argue social signals aren't relevant today, but I can guarantee that they will be extremely relevant 5 or 10 years from now. Back to the main topic, though. Branding, social media, PR, getting sites to link back to you, content creation, copywriting, all these elements, website development, they all ultimately fall under the umbrella of SEO, at least to a small degree. I think the future of every business needs to accept that SEO is going to bring them half of their total website visitors, and they need to embrace the idea that SEO needs to be an advocate role that is present in every marketing department. Looking at marketing as a whole, I think it's safe to say that people's attention is focused on the internet now. It blows my mind that people will still spend $50K on a television advertisement or on like a billboard.
Right.
Paying attention to those anymore. And then not to mention the fact that there's no way to tie it back to analytics, or let alone tie it back to ROI and understand what sort of value am I actually seeing from this. I do think the direction is going towards internet marketing. I think that eventually, as people start to catch on, we're probably going to hit a point where internet marketing is going to be really the only form of marketing. And then there's probably going to be some incredible thought leaders that come out and say, hey, everyone, they're super cheap right now. Like, everyone needs to invest in these. And we're probably going to see another wave go towards traditional media. As far as, internet marketing as a whole goes, I'm a very firm believer that, Chase, much to like what you were saying, everything is going to come down to content quality and relevancy. What your readers are actually searching for. Quora, side note, is an awesome tool for that, to figure out what questions are your readers asking. But at a high level, if you can figure out what are your readers searching for, it solves the problems that your readers are struggling with. And then share that content in the right communities where your readers are present, whether it be on other websites that they're reading on, whether it be through Facebook, Twitter, Quora, anything like that, communities that your readers are present on, and sharing the content on there, starting relationships with the influencers in that area, really where success is going to come down to. So if I were to sum it up in like 2 sentences with all my rambling, because I know we're cutting it short on time here, towards an advocate role, brands need to embrace that SEOs are and should be an evangelist type position. Content quality, content relevancy, and promotion to the most valuable communities where your readers are present is where the future of digital marketing is going.
Yeah, that's good.
Same question for you, because I'd love to hear your take.
No, I mean, that's good. I totally agree, and I feel like exactly what you're saying in terms of SEO not just being this one channel anymore. It's more of an omni-channel type of thing where you have to be able to understand that you're not just the guy who's just doing things in the back end anymore, but you're actually interacting and you're understanding the business and you're kind of understanding the market, and you're not just doing, off-page SEO and content stuffing anymore like it used to be. Now SEO is kind of like this thing where you're actually working with the business to be able to create a long-term marketing strategy that isn't just based off of code.
Exactly. Exactly.
Cool, man. Well, I definitely want to put that link in the bio or the description of this video. So if anybody else wants to check that out, because I know I'm definitely interested, and maybe we'll even have you back on here so you can explain how that works in a little bit more detail, maybe with a screen share or something. So
That would be fun.
if they want to find out more about your Twitter or whatever else that is, where can they find you, man?
Yeah, so let's see. Twitter's the big one that I'm going to be most active at. I'm at Pat Ahern, followed by the number 1. Twitter name of Pat Ahern, I'll get you someday. But you can find me on, yeah, that's really the biggest place that I'm going to be most active on.
Cool. So if they want to ask questions about any of that stuff, they can just tweet you. And I'll also leave that in the description, you guys. So, all right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. That was a great talk, and I really appreciate you for coming on.
Of course. Hey, Chase, thank you for your time today. This was a blast. It amazes me that we've already been talking for an hour. This is way too much. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, that went by fast.
Chase. Well, thank you. Have a good one.